This episode of Q Point Podcast is pre-recorded, produced and sponsored by Karina Quirk, broker at Next Home Experience.
Different views.
I know your story.
From different cues.
Incredible job.
He's David Quirk.
You brought it up.
And she's Karina Quirk.
Imagine.
This is
Q Point.
Now joining us in studio is Maine's former Congressman Bruce Poliquin. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Karina. Thanks, David. You know, we're looking pretty good today, huh?
Yes.
And let's start with Minnesota. The shootings there, it brought me back when I served for you as district director. I was in D.C., headed to the office when the shooting happened there, and Steve Scalise and others. And I remember we were scrambling to try to find you because you were supposed to be there.
That's right. I was the assistant baseball coach for the congressional team, the Republicans, and I was supposed to be there that day, and I didn't because I had a hearing or something. But Steve is lucky he's alive today, Karina, as you well know. And it wasn't only Steve that got shot, a bunch of other folks did, but it was Steve that really was almost mortally wounded. And he's recovered, but he'll never be the same. And he knows that too, physically and probably mentally. The First Amendment of the Constitution is arguably the most important. The three of us have an opportunity to sit here, to congregate, and to speak freely about whatever we want to speak about. And the folks that protest, David, they have every right to express themselves. It doesn't even have to be true, but they have every right to do that, but they do not have a right to be violent. It doesn't matter what side, left or right. When you see the violence perpetrated on Steve Scalise, who was by a Bernie Sanders supporter, but now the shooting in Minnesota looks like by a Republican. Absolutely horrific.
Yes.
It's no place for this in America, and we should all condemn it, and I know you do. You know, I remember when I was in college and an early adult, it wasn't like this. Even after Margaret Chase Smith, and I don't mean back then, that was about when I was born, but we had Ed Muskie and we had Tip O'Neill and we had Olympia Snow and we had Jock McKernan and
George Mitchell.
We had George Mitchell.
Yeah.
I didn't agree with Mr. Mitchell on much of anything, but we were always, he's from Warrenville, I grew up with Dad, but we always used to be cordial to him and respectful to him, and same way going the other way. But it really started, it seems like, 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago, started to get very loud, very in your face, very threatening. And to be honest with you, these darn cell phones over here, David, and the social media stuff, this does not help. That stuff doesn't help. Now, they're great tools, right. and we get that because people run businesses in their lives and they stay in touch with grandma and their kids with this. I get all that. But boy, you can use it to the bad, and a lot of people do.
As a business person, and I know you are too, it seems to be getting harder and harder to do business in the state of Maine. What are your thoughts?
Maine is going in the wrong direction, David. The rest of the country, most of it is going in the right direction. Maine is following Massachusetts, Illinois, and California. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. When you run a business or you start a business or you buy a business and you run it, you want to grow, you want to expand, hire more people and pay them more, you want to buy new machinery and so forth and so on. In order to grow, you have costs. You have the cost of energy. Maine has the 6th highest power costs in the country, and there are reasons for that I'm sure we'll talk about. Maine is one of the most heavily taxed states in the country. We have low wages relative to New England and the rest of the country, most of the country, and we have high taxes. And now they're continuing to pile on. And when you're thinking about relocating or starting a business or moving to a state because you want to grow your family and grow your business, is that you're going to go to a place where you have more of a likelihood of being successful. And a lot of businesses are portable today. We have long winters. We're at the end of the line. It's a great place to live. I love the people. I love the state. But it is really hard. Why do you think that L.L. Bean is one of the only major companies in the country that are located in Maine? And they can't leave, right? They're Freeport, Maine. And we have 5 paper mills left. We used to have 2 dozen when I was a kid in Waterville and Oakland. You can't tax people to death. You can't tax businesses to death because it's to their best interest to raise their family and spend the money themselves instead of taxing it away from them, giving it to government, which then for the most part wastes it. And so now we have, here's an example. We're talking about taxing and spending, David. These are rough numbers, Karina. The state of Maine's budget, state government, is roughly $6 billion a year. When I was state treasurer, it was about half that, about $3 billion. But it's roughly $6 billion a year. The state of Maine has received roughly $15 billion of COVID-related money during the pandemic and after the pandemic when it was already over. So they have received over a few years 2.5 times the annual amount of money they spend. Where in the hell is it? Where did it go? If the next governor is going to have such a problem dealing with this, because now what we have is they spent it. We now have a bigger state government with more employees, higher salaries, more benefits, more regulations, on and on and on. And by our state constitution, they must balance the books, right? Unlike Washington, where they can just print money. They have a monetary policy. State of Maine does not. The other states do not. You must balance your books. Instead of taking this windfall, $15 billion, and whoever the governor should be at the time in the legislature, if they had common sense, say, look, let's structurally lower our taxes on small businesses and individuals. Take that money to plug the gap while we grow the economy, because when you lower taxes and reduce regulations and energy costs, people invest more, businesses grow, and as a result, there's an increase in tax revenues that you can use to take care of the state. But instead, they spent it instead of structurally changing the state for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It is really sad. They are absolutely going in the wrong direction. And I'll tell you, the next governor hopefully will be a common sense Republican with a legislature that support a left or right. They should unwind all of these fees and taxes that have been imposed on the people of Maine and the families and the small businesses over the last now 7 years, roughly, and bring it back to common sense. Because I'll tell you, if you want to attract young families up here and entrepreneurs that create jobs, good luck trying to do that when it's one of the toughest places in the country to do business.
Let's talk about hospitals. They're closing. Waterville, OBs. What are your thoughts on this?
Remember, Karina, what the savior was supposed to be was socialized medicine, Obamacare, such that this will now be the savior of hospitals, because what we're going to do is we're going to make it so easy for able-bodied young adults who have no children, they do not have a disability or elderly parents at home. We're going to give them free health care through our Maine Care program, which is the Medicaid program. And they're going to expand this by expanding Obamacare. So they thought that was going to be the way to save these hospitals. It didn't. Now we have all these folks that should be working and they're not, because they can get free healthcare and free just about everything else. They're not paying taxes. And so we have less money to take care of these hospitals that really need care for them. On top of that, there's such a surge in the number of people on welfare in Maine that the reimbursement rates that these hospitals get and these doctors get after you take care of one of these wonderful people that are on these programs, there are so many of them that should be working, but they're not. And so you got to pay to take care of them when they come to the ER, that these hospitals can't afford it and they're going under. It is so sad and so scary and so backward. This is a very big issue, healthcare. And a lot of politicians do not want to take on big, contentious issues and fix these problems because they get criticized. They get criticized, they might not get reelected again. And if this is their career, what's the first thing? What's the top priority, David? Top priority is getting reelected. How do I do that? Don't get criticized. So don't take on big issues, kick the can down the road, the problem gets worse, and oh, by the way, we're in trouble now. Now I'll fix it. Every time they try to fix it, they make it worse. We need business people who understand the importance of balancing a budget, living within your means, keeping energy costs low, keeping taxes low, keeping regulations low, keeping power rates low. All of these things are such common sense, such that we can all live better lives with more freedom and more opportunity. And you can help the people of Maine by doing that, but you can't by taxing and spending them to death, which is exactly what they're doing.
What are your thoughts of trying to get energy back into the state of Maine that's affordable for everybody?
When you have Augusta come out publicly during the last 7 years and saying our goal is to eliminate all fossil fuels, that means when you turn on a light switch and you're burning natural gas down in Johns Island in Yarmouth, instead of coal, instead of oil, you're burning natural gas, which is abundant, cheap, and clean burning. You get electricity in these lines that Versant and CMP distribute to our homes and businesses. Okay, but now what you're trying to do is force us out of that type of production. And now you're shutting down more of our dams such that you have less and less water falling over a dam that runs a turbine, spins a turbine, creates electricity. They usually last about 120 years unless they blow them up for the fish, right? But you're now taking away that. And what you're making us do is buy electricity generated by the two most expensive ways to produce imaginable or in existence today, one of which is wind power and the other is solar. So the state of Maine has been forced through our elected representatives, including our governor in Augusta, forcing us to buy very expensive electricity and forcing us as best they can to buy electric vehicles. So the cost of buying a vehicle goes up, the cost of running a business or a home goes up, and who's paying for it? Everyday mom and pop folks, the folks that are getting up and sending their kids to school and trying to make it. My point, David, is the following. Most of the rest of the country is going in the right direction. We're saying everything should be on the table. This should be a buffet. You want to buy an electric vehicle? God bless you. You want to buy wind and solar power? Go ahead and do it. But we need to have every single form of energy here in order to drive our economies, jobs, safety, and a better life, including nuclear. I'll never forget this. We had one nuclear power plant down in Wiscasset, Maine Yankee. It was partly owned by Central Maine Power at the time, Boston Edison, and a few other companies, mostly in the Northeast. And it was effectively shut down by the environmental movement. They were generating roughly 800 or 900 kilowatt hours a year, if I get this right, at about 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour. What are we paying now? 27 cents?
29, I think.
29. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. By the way, we have the sixth highest. This is the state of Maine with low wages and high taxes. We have the sixth highest power bills in the country. When we had a nuclear power plant at that time, David, when I was entered private life to run for governor, ended up as state treasurer before I went to Congress, we did a study of this, and we needed at the time 2 nuclear power plants. And that would provide enough cheap electricity for the state of Maine for the next 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it was. I can't remember exactly. But now we're getting rid of these inexpensive, reliable, abundant forms of energy and mills. And frankly, the Democrats, who are very extreme on taxes and spending and, boys and girls sports and electric rates and green energy and all this stuff, they're forcing this down our throats, and the people of Maine are paying the price. So Maine is doubling down on these things that don't work, and most of the rest of the country is correcting these problems. It is really sad, and it's scary to see.
If you're just joining us, this is Q Point Podcast. I'm Karina Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a conversation with Maine's former Congressman, Bruce Poliquin. There's a bill, now on hold until January, that would bar local law enforcement from partnering with ICE. What are your thoughts on this?
It's the wrong way to go. Just as I was saying, is that Maine is doubling down on crazy, whereas the rest of the country, most of it is going in the right direction. The number one job of elected officials, whether it be in your town, in your state, or in your country, is to keep us safe. If we are not safe when we drop our kids off at school, if we are not safe when we go to work, if we are not safe when we turn out the lights at night, we have nothing. We have absolutely nothing. We must be safe. A few years ago, the battle cry on the left was defund the police. Who in their right mind ever thought that? Who in their right mind would try to strip away funding from the folks that keep us safe and instead hire social workers to replace them? And this has all evolved now into these protests. I hate to say this because I work with everybody. You're a business owner, David, you know that. You have to work with difficult clients, difficult customers, depending on the industry you're in, difficult vendors, difficult employees sometimes, difficult partners sometimes, but you learn to deal with everybody. Well, why in the heck are we not allowing our local PDs, our local sheriffs, and our state police to work with the folks that are responsible for enforcing our immigration system? The folks that don't have common sense, who are running the state, and were running this country until this past January, I don't think they have anything to offer except protests. I think they just want to be loud. They want to be negative. They don't want to fix any problems. Who in their right minds would keep an international border open with Mexico for 4 years? You can just walk across. We have no idea who in the hell you are, but come on in, and oh, by the way, everything's free. And this is a 2,200-mile border we have with Mexico that spans California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. And so we have 15 million people in this country. We have no idea who they are, including thousands. And the Mills administration doesn't tell us how many, so I'm best guessing 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 who have come to Maine. We have to take care of them, including housing them. We have a housing crisis in the state of Maine. We have young families, and you know it better than anybody. Prices are through the roof because the regulations, in part, in building materials and inflation and everything else, and interest rates are high because when you spend money you don't have at the state or the federal level and you print that money, it drives up inflation, drives up interest rates, which drives up the cost of everything. And so our families can't buy a home. They're living with mom and dad, or they're renting, or they're not moving to Maine where they want to go. But at the same time, we've got to take care of thousands of people who are in the country. Most of them came in illegally, and it includes housing. And our veterans are sleeping in the woods because they're homeless. This is wrong. It took the new administration in Washington less than 60 days to secure that border. The number of people that are crossing that border with Mexico illegally is down to a trickle, the lowest ever recorded. These problems can be fixed. The next governor, he or she, left or right, if they have common sense and they have it in their hearts to take care of the people they love, presumably they love in the state of Maine, should on this issue do a couple things, Karina, that are straight up. Number one, close the Office of New Americans. 2, end the governor's and the legislators' plan to resettle 75,000 additional migrants in this state. We cannot afford it. Make it very public. We cannot settle these folks anymore until we take care of our own first. Not folks that come from the Congo or Somalia or China. We should make it very clear to all layers of law enforcement in this state to work with the federal law enforcement agencies, including ICE, to locate the folks who are in this country illegally and committing violent crimes and deport them, period. Some things in life are very hard. This is not hard.
You know, a few weeks ago, we had Brewer Police Chief Chris Martin here to discuss decriminalization going on in the legislature, and he goes and testifies similar to other law enforcement. He informed us that there are several cartels that are present in Maine, and there are now kilos of methamphetamine, fentanyl, cocaine, and he said it used to be ounce, half ounce, but now in the last 5 years, we now see kilos in the Bangor market. How should the state respond to this?
The state should respond to admit and realize that Bangor is roughly a 4-hour drive from Boston. Portland's about a 2-hour drive, roughly. And the state of Massachusetts, because of its open border policies, like Maine, is a hotbed of violent crime committed by illegal aliens in the state of Massachusetts. And now, as you just mentioned, Karina, the spillover is really easy. You just get on 95 and you go north for a few hours. Now we have arrests of gang members and cartel members all throughout the state, not just Portland and South Portland, but other parts of the state also. So we know they're here. Not only does law enforcement tell us that, but we see it when they are apprehended. One of the things they can and should do is make it clear, as I mentioned earlier, if you're in this country illegally and you're detained because you had a tail light that was out and your local police officer stopped you and you're in jail now because we realize that you're here illegally, we're going to turn you over to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is the immigration police, and they're going to follow the federal law. We have a president now and a Congress now that supports that, and you will not be here very long. That's the first thing they should do. The second thing they should do is, and this is really at the federal level, Karina, the president is doing this. He's putting massive pressure on China to make sure, as best of our ability, these chemicals that are shipped to Mexico right over the border that are then put together in pill factories on the other side of the border with Mexico and then smuggled over here in the form of fentanyl pills, that is stopped. I remember when we worked together, when I was in Congress and you were my terrific district director, the best in the country, is that I remember touring the border, the Mexican border. I'll never forget that as long as I live. Not only seeing the wall, but along the border, we visited 2 or 3 local police departments and sheriff's office. And I remember going into the back room. If you go by where all the inmates are, they do not, look like they were there for a traffic violation. And they're all waiting to be deported, but they were being stopped by the Biden administration. But in any event, the next room was stacked to the ceiling, stacked with boxes and bags of illegal drugs. A 5-pound bag of fentanyl, to see if I get this right now, can kill every person in the state of Maine, I think, a couple times over. 5-pound bag. This is really serious stuff, and you need a government in Augusta, because it starts at the top, it starts with leadership, to make it very clear at all levels of law enforcement that we are taking crime and criminals seriously, and we're going to stop this, because they have done it at the Mexican border, and they are doing it in other parts of the country. We are going in the wrong direction. We got a 611-mile border with Canada, including water, including land. And as you remember, I toured that too by helicopter. And boy, folks that snowmobile up there, and you're going to snowmobile. Are you in Canada or are you in Maine? The border is very poorly marked. It's isolated, is deserted for the most part. Very easy to cross that border and not be detected. When you squeeze a water balloon, as they've done down in Mexico, then you get spillover up here in the Canadian border, including the state of Maine. And we got to take this dead seriously, and the people in Augusta who run this state are not. Another layer of this, folks, is what the heck is going on with these Chinese nationals, many of whom are not here legally. They're buying up pieces of rural Maine, farmhouses and homes that are at the end of a dirt road, and they're stripping, the lighting out and putting in 400 amp service, and they're blocking out the windows, and every single room put new shelves in there or benches in there, and they're growing pot. They're doing it illegally. They don't have a license, and they're selling it on the black market. The Maine Wire, to their credit, they've been the first people who have really discovered this, addressed this, and reported on this. And we've had like 220 illegal pot-growing facilities, warehouses, homes in the state of Maine. This has been going on for 3 or 4 years. Where in the heck is law enforcement in the state of Maine? Their job is to keep us safe. This is not safe when you have vans arriving at 2 a.m. packed with illegal pot, and they're shipping it or transporting it down to Lawrence or Brooklyn or Boston, and they're ruining these homes, and we got a housing crisis here in the state of Maine.
Yes, we do.
Karina, you're one of the best realtors in the state.
Well, thank you.
Well, you sold the property, or you helped me buy a property, rather. I mean, I've experienced it right up in front, right? And you know it better than anybody. This is absolutely horrible. Let me tell you what's happened. I'm not a favor of legalized marijuana. I'm just not. I had one brother who's no longer with us, hasn't been with us for over 25 years. He started out with pot when he was, 14, 16 in a garage band and all that, and it led to cheap booze, and 35 years later he was dead. Marijuana is a gateway drug. Some folks are saying that it's not. It is. You ask law enforcement, it is. I lived it. Our family lived it for 35 years with Jim. But, when it becomes legalized recreationally, as it did, 4, 5, 6 years ago, not just medicinal, where you got an ailment, David, and you need to take some of this marijuana or the ointment or something. I get all that. We had that for about 25 years, and it just dealt with medical uses of the substance. But now it's recreational. And so what happens? Well, you get guidance from the top, from the Blaine House, and from our elected officials. They say, look, this is not a big deal here anymore, so we're just going to turn a blind eye. We're going to try to do the other stuff. And so in the meantime, these folks that are well-funded through New York, but they're Chinese nationals, they say, well, let's see. State of Maine is way up there. It's isolated for the most part. It's within roughly a 12-hour drive to 40% of our country's population. Hey, I know a great place where we can go pot. They don't have their act together when it comes to law enforcement or government. We'll take advantage of it. Some of the numbers I've seen is unbelievable. $2, $3, $4 billion a year is the street value of this pot that's grown illegally in the state of Maine and transported out of here by folks who shouldn't be doing it. Why have we shut them down? They're starting to do that now. Why did it take 3 years? That's what I mean, Karina, is these elected officials don't want to get criticized. They turn away. They don't address big problems, and they get worse until it becomes a crisis.
So the recent poll...
Thought I was getting out of here, Dave.
You're not getting out of here.
The door's closed. I can't get out, and you have no help today.
You knew this was coming.
Of course I knew it was coming.
And matter of fact, I even sent it to you, but I'm sure you've seen it.
Yep.
There's 3 top candidates for the Republican gubernatorial election. You're one of them. And if you add definitely support with, I'm going to think about supporting together, you're at the top of the list.
It's very flattering. I think over the years, the people of Maine realized that our lives were better not long ago. And they are really, it's going downhill intentionally by these folks that are running the state. I'm lived long enough to learn you never say never. I'm in great health, plenty of energy. I know this stuff. Governing is not hard when you know what to do and you're fearless and you're going to do what's right. It's getting there. It's the campaign part. That is, when you lose friends and family members, your business suffers. I got a 97-year-old mom in a nursing home, and she's well cared for, and I love her to death. But I need to see more evidence. I need to see clearly that a majority, not everyone, a majority of the state of Maine wants to go in an entirely different direction. If they do, I can help them. I'm not saying that I will. I'm not saying that I'll run again, but that would be important for me to see. Otherwise, it's a waste of time.
And this evidence, what specifically is the evidence? Are you talking about the November election, if they vote for voter ID, or are you talking about polling? What evidence are you seeking?
That's a very good question. All the above. Certainly that poll that was done at UNH, last month that you sent to me is evidence where, wow, the top issue is it was not taxes, it was not housing, David, it was not the cost of electric bills. It was the very extreme liberal policies coming out of Augusta. That was the number one issue among voters of all political stripes in the state of Maine. That is a big piece of evidence. But I was disappointed, frankly, and we had an election on June 10 for local elections. Not everywhere in the state, but a lot of towns had elections, for school board and city council and selectmen. And not enough of our people won. Not enough common sense people won, or they didn't step up to win. And so that was disappointing. But what happens with voter ID is going to be very important. Yeah, let's see what the people of Maine want. If they want to change direction, then there are a bunch of people that can help them. Me being one. I mean, the other folks that are coming out that have common sense, that have announced they want to run for governor, Karina, are great people. And they're competent and they'll do a good job. Now, they're going to need help. And, my whole thing has always been, how can I help the people of Maine that I love? It's that simple. I'm not doing it for me. I'm not doing it for me. I've had a business career. I've done it. It's been great. Mom is well cared for. Sammy's doing great. It's not about me. It is about helping the people of Maine. But if people don't want to change and they're happy with the way things are going now, open borders, resettling more illegals here, in your housing crisis, higher taxes, fewer jobs, more welfare, kids aren't doing well in school, boys and girls sport. I mean, if they want to keep going down that path, I'm not going to mash my head against the wall. It'd be a waste of time. If I see lots of pieces of evidence that you alluded to a minute ago, Karina, then it would be tempting to run. I'm not saying that I would. It'd be very tempting. But, boy, it is going to be tough. We can fix it? Absolutely, we can fix it. Yeah. Tough is good. You kidding me? Tough is fun. Give me something hard to do. I used to coach baseball for 17 years in Maine at college, high school, and Little League. I said, give me something hard to do. Yeah, these guys got a left-handed pitcher that throws gas. He's got a great bender. And we're little kids who we can't hit, but we can bunt and run. We can steal bases. We'll drive them crazy. Give me something hard to do. We'll beat them, So we can win these things. But the people in Maine have to step up. They got to do their part.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's always good to see you.
Great to see you, too.
We appreciate you taking the time for us.
Of course, David. Great to see you all.
You've been listening to Q Point.
Follow us at qpointpodcast.com or on your favorite streaming app.
This is where you can get the news from the people who make the news.
Make sure to join us next time.
We hope you tune in.
Q Point Podcast invites candidates from all parties to join the conversation. The views, information, opinions, and comments expressed during this program do not necessarily represent those of the host, Q Point Podcast, associates, affiliates, and CQRE LLC.
Thanks for being a part of the conversation. Catch every episode at qpointpodcast.com or wherever you stream. Tune in and tell your friends.